The Angry Chicken is a production of Amove TV. Bookmark amove.tv for more gaming and esports shows. The Angry Chicken is directly supported by listeners like you via patreon.com/TAC.
Hey everyone! Get in here! Ready for action! I've got the beast in my sight.
A podcast about Hearthstone, Heroes of Warcraft. This is the Angry Chicken.
Welcome back, test subjects. This is the Angry Chicken. I'm Garrett Weinzierl. She's Jocelyn Moffat. Willie Dills sadly will not be joining us today as he is traveling. There's Joss. Oh my God. There's so much to talk about. There's so much.
Hype?
There's so much
Science!
There it is. I don't even know where to begin. Actually, I do know where to begin. A quick announcement, for our listeners. This apparently is the month of tack travel. So starting with this episode, we'll have 3 episodes in a row where all 3 of us will not be on the podcast. So no Dills today. Jocelyn, you're traveling next Tuesday, so it'll just be me and Dills, and maybe Ant. Still talking with him. He may be joining us as a guest. And then the week after that, I'll be gone, and it'll be Jocelyn and Dills. So there you go.
Your July's all messed up. We're sorry.
Yeah, sorry, folks.
At least you get a show every week because the alternative was no shows. So
yes, exactly. We like to enjoy summer as well.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of stuff to talk about today, so let's hit the new bumper.
You can go into success with no regrets when you work with Dr. Boom.
Dr. Boom is not responsible for severed, exploded, or lost body part.
Creepy! I like it. Okay.
That's right.
I hadn't heard that yet, you guys. It's real good.
So a new Hearthstone expansion has been announced. Since we last spoke, Joss, we thought we had a teaser of an announcement in the form of an Orcan holding some fruit. Turns out that was just something for a Hearthstone event and had nothing to do with the expansion. And then last night, an almost 10-minute video announcing the Boomsday Project, Hearthstone's next expansion, somehow leaked. I'm still not sure who posted it first or how it was even found because it was unlisted on Hearthstone's YouTube. Not private.
It just means that somebody was probably like, hey, look at this cool thing I'm working on, and sent a link to their friend. And then the friend went, whoa, this is the new Hearthstone announcement. I better post this on the internet. So I bet those two are not friends anymore.
Probably not. But yeah, so the next expansion is called the Boomsday Project. We were not completely off base. It is very Netherstorm themed. But it is also very Dr. Boom themed. Dr. Boom is back. I would assume in a card, but we haven't seen his card form if we're getting a new version of Dr. Boom.
We're definitely going to get Dr. Boom 2.0. Whether he'll do the same sort of thing or not is still remains to be seen. But yeah, he's definitely got to be a card in the set.
Yeah, it's got to be, right? Got to be. We got 2 Deathwings. We're going to have 2 Dr. Booms.
Exactly.
With unique effects. And whatnot. But yeah, so it's very mad scientist, evil lair.
Chat room, before we move on, chat room is saying he's the new warrior hero card. I only watched the video once and I knew they teased the warrior hero card, but I didn't catch the text on it. So apparently he's the new warrior hero card.
This is news to me. I guess I missed that. I guess I missed that teaser.
Yeah, it was they did the whole panning too far thing, and they panned over to a warrior legendary. I didn't realize it's a hero card, but
sweet.
Bam.
Sweet.
And apparently they discussed him on the blog post, which I didn't even realize there was a blog post.
Yes, you can go to theboomsdayproject.com, Jocelyn. Theboomsdayproject.com. Not sponsored, by the way. But yeah, so he's teased on the website, huh? I'm just nope, still not seeing it. Can't find it quickly. Not good audio. Moving on to the stuff I prepared for. It has since officially been announced. It was just leaked ahead of time. So head on over to the official Hearthstone YouTube if you have not seen it already. I love this announcement with every fiber of my being. there's two things in this world that I love: Death Knights, so Frozen Throne was a hit, and ridiculous Bill Nye-esque cheese, and that's what I can find here.
Yeah, this is so Bill Nye.
It's great. It's so wonderful. So it's Dave Kosak and a bunch of Team 5 in lab coats on a ridiculous set, revealing 5 cards. So we haven't seen a ton of cards, but we have a pretty decent idea of what the hell is going on with this, because we're getting project cards, we're getting a new mechanic, we're getting legendary spells, we're getting legendary scientists, we're getting Omega cards, which we'll talk about in a second. But we're also getting a new version of single player, and I wanted to make sure and mention this because it wasn't really talked about in their announcement video. But if you actually head on over to the press site, there are some images of the new single player. It appears to be called Puzzle Lab, and that's about all we know. There's also a second image that kind of shows like what the puzzle titles are. There's one called Lethal, one called Mirror, one called Board Clear, so on and so forth.
Yeah, and it looks like from the first screenshot that there's 16 somethings, 16 challenges, I guess.
I would assume. So this is looking a little more straightforward and old school in the vein of adventures than it is a dungeon run-esque.
Mm-hmm. Which I'm glad. I mean, whatever this turns out to be, I'm glad that this isn't just dungeon run number 3. I'm glad that they're branching out and trying different things with single player, so we don't know exactly what's going to come every single time. It makes it single player a little bit more exciting because I was burnt out on those dungeon run type things.
Yeah, me as well. And keep it varied, right? Like,
yeah,
with this, you don't need to keep doing the same thing every single time. I'm actually kind of looking forward to going back to the old adventure style of beat this and move on to the next one.
Mm-hmm.
So there's also a card reveal stream that's scheduled for 10 a.m. Pacific on July 23rd. That's going to be on the official Hearthstone Twitch. If you're not aware of it, it's just /play Hearthstone. Why aren't you following it? But let's get to the meat, I guess, which is what we're getting in this expansion and the cards that they showed us. Again, they only showed us 5, but it seems like we've got a good idea of what the theme is going to be going into this. So one of the first new things that they showed were the idea of a project card, and it sounds like this is going to be a themed type of cards. It sounds like almost every class is going to get this, if not every class. I couldn't find confirmation whether or not. But
well, it does seem like, because there's a section on the website that specifically like features the idea of projects as almost a new mechanic. So yeah, I think you're right. We're going to get multiple projects across. I don't know if it's going to be like the odd even cards where like 3 or 4 classes will get projects, or if it's going to be more along the lines of like the legendaries where everyone gets a project they can complete, but definitely multiple different projects. This is not the one and only project we will be completing in what's it called? Boomsday, right?
Boomsday.
Boomsday.
Boomsday, yeah. And the way they kind of explained it is that it's a new type of spell card that has a powerful effect, but it is beneficial to both players. And the one that they showed is a new druid spell called Biology Project. It's a common for 1 mana that reads, each player gains 2 mana crystals.
Right. So they are full mana crystals. So you'll play 1 and then have 2 left over on your turn 1 to do something with. So, I mean, if absolutely nothing else, at least you can hero power. And then so you're getting the benefit before your opponent does. Because yes, your opponent will, well, I guess your opponent will start 2 turns ahead, but they don't get to actually use the mana crystals like you do. So it's a little bit more balanced than a couple of the effects that we saw in Witchwood, where it was like, you would do a thing that would benefit both players, but then the opponent would get the initiative. Here, you're still retaining the initiative while bumping them ahead by 2 turns. So it's a little bit better than, I feel like it was a druid card. It was Duskfall and Aviana, I think, is the one that I'm thinking of.
Yeah, I think so. We also saw similar type drawbacks in the arena cards during the Taverns of Time.
Yeah.
But Biology Project is it seems cool. It seems to have a lot of potential. I mean, these are full mana crystals, and it's Druid, so they already have access to all of this other ramp. So you can use this to ramp into more ramp that doesn't benefit your opponent. So like imagine on turn 1 ramping into wild growth and just continuing down the path. I can't claim that my brain worked this way. I saw this on competitive Hearthstone and it was killing me. But someone on there was like, yeah, we're just going to turn 1 biology project into wild growth. Then on turn 2, nourish into wild growth and biology project. And then on turn 3, innervate into a turn 3 ultimate infestation.
Disgusting.
That's
I mean,
God
it's
tier
obviously
draw,
the
right?
perfect draw, but still.
yeah.
The fact that that's even possible to have 10 mana at turn 3 is just... I'm shaking my head. Exactly. Infrarogue in the chat room got it exactly right. Barf.
All caps. All caps. Barf.
Yeah, barf.
Yeah, it's there's a lot of potential in this card. I dig it. I dig it. And very Tempest Keep themed in its art. This is what Botanica, I believe it looks like from the art.
Yeah, this is what I was talking about with those like biodome things that are in Netherstorm. That's like exactly what this is, which is really super cool.
Yeah. It's very pink. I figured you would like it. It's pink
Of course,
sparkly.
this whole expansion is very pinky purple, so I'm on board.
It's also looking like, as I would expect from a Dr. Boom themed expansion, that mechs are going to be getting a lot of love. That being said, we've only seen one, even though a Mega Defender looks a lot like a mech to me. Doesn't have the mech tag, but along with the mechs is coming a new mechanic. They're putting the mech in mechanic, Jocelyn. It's called Magnetic, and magnetic minions, so it's going to be attached to minions. They can be played on their own, but they can also be attached to a mech minion that is already in play, and it will buff that existing mech with the attack and health as well as any effects that are on the card. And the example that they showed us was a new rare hunter mech minion called Spider Bomb. It's a 3-mana 2/2 that has Magnetic, which is what I just described, but it also has Death Rattle that reads Destroy a random enemy minion. So you can either play this for 3 mana as a 2/2 that has a pretty decent Death Rattle, or you can attach it to a mech minion already in play, and it will give it that +2/+2 plus the Death Rattle effect.
Yeah, so it's kind of like flexibility that we're used to seeing from, say, like Druid specifically, where they have the option of 2 different things. That's basically what this is. It's either a minion or a buff card, which is a kind of a cool mechanic. I like the idea of Magnetic, but I do think you're right. Like, we need to see more mechs. Obviously, this mechanic is going to be amazing over in Wild, because you have so many mechs from Goblins versus Gnomes. We haven't really had that many mechs added to the game since then. We've kind of gotten 1 or maybe 2 with each expansion. So I feel like in Wild, this is going to be super fun to play with. And we're also going to see another, I think, infusion of mechs with this expansion. So if that's the case, like, there's just going to be so much choice in Wild when it comes to making mech decks, and they're going to have this really cool new keyword. So I think this is most exciting for Wild players.
Yeah, absolutely. I was like, my brain started running away, and I wanted like facts, and I don't know these things off the top of my head, so I started digging it up. So I was just like, how many mechs are currently in Standard? And the answer is 8. We only have 8 mechs currently available in Standard. 9 if you count Dragonling Mechanic, which is not inherently a mech herself, but spawns a Dragonling mech token. So I would assume that there are a lot of mechs coming in with this expansion. And if you will forgive a very brief history lesson, if you missed GVG or if you just weren't aware, I was curious, because I've never looked the number up, how many mechs are in GVG. Turns out 43 minions are in GVG with the mech tag. And this is not counting mech synergy minions. So minions that don't have the mech tag that also synergize with mechs. There were quite a few of those in GVG as well. So if it's on that level, I think Magnetic's going to be rad. But we're going to need a lot of mechs.
Yeah, and like I said, I think we're going to get some more mechs in this expansion, and Wild will be the place to play crazy super strong mech decks for sure.
Yeah, I would agree. So Spider Bomb looks interesting, but I need to see more mechs. They also talked about legendary spells, and we got a preview of the Rogue's legendary spell, and it's called Mira's Unstable Element. It's going to cost you 5 mana to cast, and it reads, draw the rest of your deck.
Pretty legendary. We've been talking about legendary spells and why we don't have them for like literally since the first time Hearthstone had an expansion.
Yeah, the answer was I think they were just sitting there being like, we gotta make them crazy, guys. We gotta make them nuts. And if this is any indication, they succeeded.
They definitely did. This is like take the auctioneer out of your Miracle Rogue level of crazy.
I mean, yeah. I'm not sure I'd go that far, but like this got to be.
Oh yeah,
very,
no, that's obviously the very extreme.
Yeah, this has got to be very specific. Like this is going to be built around like OTK. I'm very excited about how it's going to work with something like Kingsbane, because once I have a super buff Kingsbane, I don't need the rest of my deck. Like,
yeah,
I find that kind of interesting. And I'm also curious if there's anything creative we can do with Dorian. Your favorite, Dollmaster Dorian. He's very fun and friendly looking.
Oh man, I don't even remember what's his effect again.
He summons a 1/1 copy anytime you draw a minion.
Ah, right.
Yeah.
There could be shenanigans, but I guess it depends too. Like, I mean, obviously this is you're not going to be playing this on turn 5 because everyone's saying like, oh, it's going to burn so many of your cards, but you just don't play it when you have 20 cards left in your deck. You play it when you've got 5 cards left in your deck, which, to be honest, if you're playing Miracle Rogue, you get there pretty quickly. Like, you draw through your deck quite soon. And sometimes when you're playing Miracle Rogue, you're just looking for that last spider or two, or your Leroy, or an Eviscerate, or, like that last kind of piece of damage. So this is just kind of another way to get there. And it's something that your opponent can't mess with the way that they can, just kill off your auctioneer. So I think it's a good win condition finding card.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, the chat room saying that this is like more about random spells and whatnot. And I think that's, I don't think it's just that. I think there's more to this card than some of the conversation that's happening in the chat room is giving it credit. There's going to be, I'm sure a combo will be found that will make use of this. Whether or not it'll be like competitively playable, especially on a ladder grind, who knows? But yeah.
Well, and the interesting thing is too, it's not a specific number of cards, so it's playable regardless of how much is left in your deck, right? You're never going to fatigue yourself with this card. Whereas if you've got like chat room's also mentioning sprint. Like if you've got a sprint, it has a specific number of cards. So if you're at the bottom of your deck, then you're going to fatigue yourself. And so sometimes it doesn't get played. But if you're playing Myra's Unstable Element, then you're going to just draw the rest of your deck. You'll fatigue the next turn, but you can't fatigue yourself. So there's also that to it as well.
Right.
Sorry. Super annoying cat in my lap right now. Just getting distracted.
Thrall wants to be on the podcast.
He does.
And we're not talking about the shaman hero. We're talking about Jocelyn's orange cat.
Yeah. But yeah, my point is that this is a flexible number of cards, so use at your discretion.
Right. They also mentioned that we're getting multiple legendary scientists. The theme is that Dr. Boom has assembled a team of scientists, so expect quite a few kind of mad scientist legendaries. The example that we were shown is a new shaman legendary called Electra Storm Surge, which is a 3-mana 3/3 elemental. Also has a battle cry that reads, "Your next spell this turn casts twice." I am crafting this card day one. If I don't crack it, I am crafting it immediately.
Yeah, it's definitely it's interesting and I think fun. It's low enough that you should be able to combo it well with things, but and you've got this question in the notes too. My first thought is overload ? And I feel like we would get double. So let's say Lightning Storm. So you want to get a board clear in. So you cast your Lightning Storm after you've put Electra on the board. Then it would do 2 to 3 damage and overload because you cast it. But then I'm trying to remember because they changed Yogg, right? So Yogg does overload you, because I'm thinking if it's the minion casting the spell, then it would also, it would work the same as Yogg and it would double overload you. So then you do another 2 to 3 damage and then also get overloaded that second time.
Yes, I would. I'm assuming.
I think double overload is probably correct.
Yeah. Yeah, because if it says casts twice, so it's as if I cast this card twice, which if I was doing it with just 2 cards that had overload, I would incur both overload costs.
Yeah, true.
So I would assume it. I've been looking like up until the last minute of the show for like a list of clarifications from any members of the Hearthstone team, and I haven't found anything. So we're kind of working on assumptions this week. But God, there's just so much. I can't think of a reason you wouldn't want to play this card. Like it's great for anti-aggro. It's great if you want to murder the hell out of your opponent. Like like bloodlust with boars is now something you could do.
Yeah, because you don't incur the mana cost, right? So yeah, you could do all kinds of crazy lusty shenanigans.
Yeah, well, not for the second cast anyway. You have to have the mana.
You have the
the
mana for the first one. Yeah.
But oh my God, I mean, it's just like you just throw this in Shutterwalk without thinking, right? You're just like, yep, okay, it's in there. Because we're gonna.
Do you though?
Wouldn't you? I mean, I guess
I don't know if you would. Like the Shutterwalk deck is pretty refined now, and yes, this is a battle cry, and it's a powerful battle cry, but it's not the kind like. By the time you get to the point of playing Shutterwalk, the only thing that you want to be playing are your 1 mana Shutterwalks to kill your opponent. You don't want to be comboing that with a spell. So I don't know if you do that. Like it might potentially help you survive a little bit longer. Like we talked about double Lightning Storm, because Shutterwalks do run Lightning Storm now, some of them. So maybe, but I don't know where you would find room.
That's fair. That's fair. Yeah, I'm not sure. Based in the chat room is making me lose my mind because now I'm thinking, oh my God, is Doomhammer coming back? Because like double Rock Fighters on a Doomhammer, like there's some crazy combos you could pull off with this deck to try and murder your opponent.
Yeah, I think it's more of it'll be its own kind of thing. I don't think it'll get slotted into the Shutterwalk deck. I think there's going to be some cool double spell combo deck that this fits into.
Gotcha.
Because I do think it has a lot of flexibility, right? And the chat room's also asking a really interesting question about targets. So does it actually, things like Lightning Storm and Bloodlust don't matter, but burn spells do. So is it casting the first one where you target it and then the next one randomly, or do they both hit the same target? It's an interesting question. That's one I would like to see clarification on.
Yeah, I would assume if it's targeted that it would try and target the same target a second time.
I would think so too, but it's Hearthstone, so random.
True. But again, have not seen clarification on that, so not sure. But this is the kind of card, I think it's just good enough. Yes, there's some combo. There's definitely combo potential here. There's a combo in itself that it doubles up any spell that you play. But I think this might just be good enough. If you're just playing any shaman with removal, if you're running Lightning Storm, why would you not run this? Mm-hmm. It just seems like an all-around good card. Plus it's elemental, which...
so maybe this is an elemental shaman type card.
Right, but I just vote that this is just good enough. Regardless of what theme you're going for, if at any point you want to try and control the board, I think you consider it. If at any point you're trying to burst down your opponent, I think you consider it.
Yeah, like I said, this is where the flexibility comes in, right? You can have, as long as you have a few different spells in your deck, you can really use Electra to do anything. You can use her for control or burn or, anything really. So
yeah. And then finally, the other kind of theme to the set that they mentioned are Omega cards, which are very straightforward cards until you are sitting on 10 mana. Then they have crazy effects. And the example that they gave us is called Omega Defender. It is a 4-mana, 2/6 epic neutral minion that has Taunt. So if you're not at 10 mana crystals, it's just a 4-mana 2/6 with Taunt. However, it has a battle cry that reads, if you have 10 mana crystals, gain +10 attack. So if you have 10 mana crystals, it is a 4-mana 12/6.
Right. But it doesn't cost 10 mana crystals. It just has to satisfy the criteria of you having 10 mana crystals available. Then you will play it for 4 mana and get a 12/6.
Yep, and still have 6 mana to do with whatever you want,
Exactly.
unless you're overloaded, because that's now in my brain. But
Yeah.
this is neat. I mean, my first thought is just arena. Like, holy crap! If like this card by itself, I want this in arena, and if the other Omega cards are of the kind of same spine-breaking caliber, this is the kind of card I'm going to be drafting a lot of. But also Ramp Druid comes to mind, especially since they're making me think about Ramp Druid with Biology Project.
Yep.
The thing
Not
is,
to mention it's a taunt card, so maybe Taunt Druid plays this. I don't know.
I'm not so sure about that. At least current versions, like, because that's where the snag is. If we're talking about Omega Defender in the realm of modern Ramp Druids, like what Druid decks that ramp right now look like, and most big Druids and Taunt Druids are running Oakheart.
Oaken Summons, yeah.
Not Oaken Summons,
Oh,
Oakheart.
Oakheart.
And they want Dragon Hatcher. So with Omega Defender having 2 attack, that would screw up your guaranteed Oakheart into Dragon Hatcher.
Yeah.
So that's interesting and something to keep in mind, but this is not going to be the only Omega card.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yep. So, I mean, we'll see. I think that the idea of Omega cards is really interesting. I hope that they're mostly neutral. Like, I don't necessarily want to see specific classes getting Omega cards, just because then they take up that, like, class card spot and have the potential to be totally terrible. I like when cards like this are neutral, because then a lot of different classes get to try to play with it, and that's where you get some interesting deck crafting. So that's the kind of stuff that I want to see. I don't want to see class Omega cards.
I'm not necessarily against either, but yeah, this is generic enough that I'm glad it's a neutral. I just think it's a very creative way to design bomb cards, because like historically in card games, not just in Hearthstone, but in card games overall, like high cost minions are kind of risky, especially vanilla ones. Like, just spending a ton of mana for one large target is risky, in that it's a dead draw earlier in the game, all the way through even the mid game, and also in late game is very easy to just lose value from premium removal. But because this has that kind of flex, that's cool. I mean, I'm not particularly excited about playing a 2/6 on 4, but having the option is better than not.
Well, exactly. And this is where you're sacrificing a little bit of power level. We've seen Hearthstone do this a lot. You sacrifice a small amount of power in order to gain some flexibility. And then it just depends if your deck is built to take advantage of the flexibility or not. And if a 2/6 on 4 would actually be kind of okay.
Yeah. This would be interesting. Oh, more Shutterwalk talk. I hadn't really thought about that. Yeah, this would be an interesting battle cry to apply to Shutterwalk, although I would assume, well, since a battle cry only triggers at 10, you would have to play your Shutterwalk post 10 after you played Omega Defender.
Yeah, so it would be like, and again, the battle cry order of Shutterwalks are random. And do you have to have 10 mana crystals, like 10 full mana crystals? Like, this has to be the first thing that you play on your turn? Because if that's the case, it would never go off, because the Shutterwalk is going to have a cost. Even if it's the one cost, there's still going to be a cost associated there. So when you play your Shutterwalk, you go down to 9 full mana crystals. So when they showed like on the video, they had that 10 mana lights in front of the card. So I don't know if that was them just being like, ooh, pretty mana crystals, or if they were actually trying to say, like, you have to have 10 full mana crystals and play this first.
Well, that's my probably only issue with the video, is I would have preferred them showing these cards in action in actual game rather than the skits that they did, because it leaves questions like that kind of up. But I would lean towards this is just, do you have 10 mana crystals, not whether they're full or not.
I would hope so, because if it does, then yes, I think this opens itself up for the Shutterwalk conversation, because then if this battle cry goes off, your Shutterwalks gain 10 attack, and then you copy them a bazillion times with all of your how long can this go on. So like this could be a big board full of Shutterwalk bombs, as if you even need that with Shutterwalk. But still, it's definitely an interesting potential card, maybe.
Right. Like, I'm overall more excited about this design, like like principle of designing cards that have, you know, mid-game potential but turn into bombs in the late game because of this if you have 10 mana crystals effect. So
Asgard in the chat room also mentions shamans with overload. So if you are overloaded for 2, like, does that count as you only having 8 mana crystals, or do you have, air quotes, 10 mana crystals?
I mean, it's still considered a crystal.
Some clarifications needed on this 10 mana crystals business.
Well, it's still they're still crystals. It's just whether they're empty or not. Because we see empty specified in certain druid cards. Yet when they are not empty, it doesn't say full. It just says mana crystal. So that's where the hang up is. I can understand that, but need clarification.
Yeah, which I'm sure will come.
But those are the cards that they've shown so far, and a teasing at a Dr. Boom Hero Death Knight-esque effect for Warriors coming down the pipeline. Hopefully we'll get to talk about that very soon. But let's talk about spending money in Hearthstone for a second, Jocelyn, because bundles are already here. They're in-game right now. You can go into the shop and pre-purchase yourself the Boomsday Project. It's going to take me a while to start saying. I'm totally going to say... Also, ahead of time, I'm sorry for when I say Boobs Day. It's going to happen, and I'm sorry.
I don't know why I am struggling so much with the name of this expansion. Like, I really don't know. But I'm having the same sort of issues. Like, I can't remember the name, and it's kind of awkward. And it's not like a tongue twister. It's just like an awkward phrase, I guess. I don't know.
It's because you're used to saying Doomsday.
Yeah.
That's where your brain went. But they have the standard bundle is, I would say, sadly back. For $49.99, at least here in the States, you get 50 card packs. So they are not doing the 20 bonus pack promotion that they did with Witchwood. They are changing things up a little bit, however, because we are now going to be getting one random golden legendary by pre-purchasing Boomsday.
Exactly. And so basically, like, one random golden legendary means one legendary of your choice. If you happen to get the legendary that you want and it's gold, then bonus, but otherwise you can disenchant them, right? So
right. Exactly. Very excited about the golden legendary. Not nearly as excited for the fact that we're not just going up to 70 card packs for $50. And I'm assuming this is more expensive in Canada.
It is. It's interesting. And I hate localized currency. I wish they'd never done this because right now the mega bundle is $100 for me.
Oh my God.
And with the exchange rate, that's actually $10 more expensive than it should be.
Wow. Okay. No, so we didn't mention the mega bundle yet. So it's a second bundle you can pre-purchase in the States. Again, $79.99. You get 80 card packs, a random golden legendary, the card back that you also get with the regular pre-purchase, but you also get a new Warlock hero, Mecha Jiraxis, which looks ridiculous, and I'm sure the emotes are amazing. But that really stinks if you're getting hit by localization on the price of currency, and also it's not even 1-to-1 with the exchange rate.
Yeah, but then like the standard bundle was actually slightly cheaper by a couple of dollars. So I was like, why did you do this, Blizzard? Anyways, whatever. It is what it is. Shitty being Canadian, apparently.
I do not understand. Yeah, that's just unfortunate. That's just a total feel bad. I don't understand why they would do that.
So are these bundles exclusive? So like if you buy one, you can't buy the other? Or could you just be a gigantic whale and spend 130 American dollars and buy both?
I believe the word you're looking for is a Garrett. You can be a Garrett and buy both.
So did you buy both?
Not yet, but I'm going to.
Oh,
like this is
fair enough.
For at least here in the States. I mean, this is the best deal on cards you can get. Like
it is the best deal on cards that you can get. I am not like going against that at all. I'm like, I understand that, but for me with the localized currency, it is $63 for the standard bundle and $100 for the mega bundle. So I would be spending $163 to get all these card packs, and I am having a very, very hard time wrapping my head around spending that much money on a Hearthstone expansion.
I do not blame you.
Even though it gets me the most cards ever and the new hero and the card back and all that kind of stuff, which is great. But yeah, it's so hard to justify spending that much money.
Yeah, it's I don't blame you at all. That's just, I don't get it. It's a digital product. And there's a whole big conversation about the localization and whatnot, but I just don't understand. What really doesn't make sense is the fact that the Mega Bundle is so much more expensive, to where it's even more expensive than it was if you were to take into account the exchange rate. So
yeah. So, and chat room saying you can get 20% off with Amazon coins. Is Amazon coins a thing that you can even do in Canada? I don't know.
I've never done Amazon coins, so
I've never
I can't
used Amazon
answer.
coins either. So
Yeah, I don't know how to use them.
But maybe that's something that I could look into. Who knows? But yeah, so for $163 is just it's so difficult for me to wrap my head around that kind of money for Hearthstone cards. So we'll see. I mean, that is 130 packs. Like that's a lot. So
Yeah.
again, I'm not questioning necessarily the worth in terms of how many packs I'm receiving for that money. I'm just saying, like, I don't know if I have like that money to shell out.
Yeah, but we're also, we're in a special kind of experience here, because like on launch day we stream, folks usually donate to us, we open more packs, so I have definitely spent more than that, thanks to generous contributions from our watchers on launch day in the past. It's just front loading all of this. That just seems a little funky, but.
Yeah, I should probably just push the button and not think about it, and then just delete all the emails that tell me how much money I gave Blizzard.
First of all,
if I don't see it didn't happen.
Well, also business expense, Jocelyn. Business expense.
Yeah, that is true. But like, business expense for you and I, which is fine, but it's not a business expense for everyone. And I know this conversation has been happening since we got to the 3 expansions in a year model. But it seems like the expense of Hearthstone is just, it's going up and up and up and up. And yes, you don't have to get the mega bundle, but like they seem to be offering us more and more ways to spend dollars, which I get, they're a business, but yeah, I'm really starting to feel it. And if I'm really starting to feel it, I feel very, very bad for other players.
Yeah, it's
who
not,
might not have the budget that I have.
Like, I feel like you're being too trepidatious with it. Like, this is not a crazy reaction to have. That is a lot of money. I had this feeling with World of Warcraft Collector's Editions back in Draenor when they raised the price of it. And I was like, yeah, this is officially at my pain point. I have the money. I love these games. I love supporting the company. But there's a certain point where it just gets to a certain amount of like upfront investment. We were just like, yeah, that's kind of ridiculous. Like,
yeah.
And you're right. You don't have to do it. But at the same time, too, you're sitting there like, it's like the coupon. It's the sale mentality of like, this is as cheap as it will ever be. If over the next 3 months, like the cycle of this entire expansion before the next expansion comes out, I end up buying 80 cards plus 50 cards. I'm apparently very bad at math and can't do that on the spot.
130 card packs.
If I end up buying 130 card packs over the course of that 3-month period, I will have spent more money than I would have if I had just shelled out a large chunk of cash at the very beginning. But it's like that mental argument for me, that's like really where the feel bad comes in, because it's like, well, yeah, I'm gonna buy that many card packs at some point over the course, like I always do. But boy, I don't want to drop $130 right out the gate.
Yeah, and I mean, like 130, 160, whichever currency you're talking in, that is like 2 AAA titles worth of video game. And I do play Hearthstone, like my Hearthstone playtime is second only to World of Warcraft, but still, it's like, I don't know. It should be worth it. But it just, because it's such a huge chunk, it's just, I'm having so much trouble justifying it.
Yeah, it's the mental snag. I think most.
Tara's saying use your credit cards and spread it out a bit. That doesn't actually help you guys. Credit's even worse. I'm talking about spending my actual dollars. Credit is dollars I don't own.
I mean, miles, if you have the dumb money, then you pay it. We're not getting into financial advice here on the Angry
Yeah,
Chicken. That's not what we're here for.
And Green Man is also saying Amazon coins are not in Canada. Okay, I didn't think so because I've never seen anything on Amazon.ca about coins, but everyone keeps talking about them. So
Yeah.
my fiance is also in the chat room as we're having this conversation about me spending almost 200 of our dollars on Hearthstone cards, and is just like face palming right now.
The memes.
Yeah.
Well, whatever the case, you have more options now, and you're not crazy. Like my TLDR on this is, this should feel better.
Yes.
This should feel better than it does. But whatever the case, go get your pre-order, however much you want to go in.
Or don't. We won't judge you. It'll all be okay.
Yeah, exactly. I am in a unique position, and I will be spending all the money. But before we move into non-expansion announcement Hearthstone news, because there's other things happening in Hearthstone right now, we have a sponsor to thank today. Jocelyn Away Luggage is here once again to sponsor an episode of The Angry Chicken. You can check out the multiple different types of wonderful luggage that they have to offer you over at awaytravel.com/TAC. We both have Away luggage. They were kind enough to send us their carry-ons, which, as we have mentioned in the past, we use to great effect, not only to move things like pants and shirts between locations when we fly, but to keep our devices charged, because they have internal batteries and they pop out and you can pop back in. You don't need to sit next to people in the airport. It's great.
Who likes airport people?
Well, it depends on the
Although,
airport
to be
person.
fair, I don't like crowds of people anyway, so the fact that it's happening in an airport really doesn't change things for me, but still, who likes airport people? No one likes airport people.
Yeah, but they still have a promotion for Angry Chicken listeners. You can get $20 off a suitcase by visiting awaytravel.com/TAC and use the promo code TAC during checkout. And again, both their carry-ons, they have a carry-on and the aptly named bigger carry-on have internal batteries for charging. You can get 5 iPhone chargers out of these batteries. They have a TSA-approved combination lock. They have an interior pressure system. They have a free shipping within the lower 48 states, a 100-day return policy, and a lifetime warranty. This is seriously the nicest luggage I've ever owned. I got a lot of use out of it last month when I was doing New York and Atlanta and all that other stuff, and I'll be using it again for BlizzCon. But we thank them for their support, and we thank you all for visiting awaytravel.com/TAC. And if you decide to pick up some luggage, use the code TAC for $20 off a suitcase. Now, it's time for more Hearthstone news, but with the classic bumper.
Good news, everyone!
Joss, did you know that the actual Hearthstone changed today as well? Like, it got a patch in the
It
midst
did,
of...
because the bundles were in my store, and I was like, stop tempting me. You sirens.
Why does that sound like an insult? Like, you're calling them sirens. I'm like, what does that mean? Is that a Canadian insult?
What? You don't know what a siren is? They're like from Greek mythology with
I am aware.
pulling people in and then murdering them horribly. Come on.
I am aware. What I was saying is that I was curious how that relates to being tempted to spend money. But sure. I guess they're a temptation. Okay, it's come full circle. Whatever the case is, update 11.4 went live today. The Boom Day bundles are now in the shop. Go and stare at all the money you probably don't want to part with, even though you know you want those cards. I know you do.
Yep.
But the Midsummer Fire Festival also came in with this patch. It's not live yet, but it will be returning. It's been confirmed on the blog. If you were not around for the first Midsummer Fire Festival, it is Ragnaros themed as hell. The Fire Festival Tavern Brawl has you destroying minions to upgrade your WoW emote with fabulous fireworks. You were very excited about this last year.
Yes.
It was,
Obviously.
It was
Fireworks.
your jam.
Pew, pew. That was not a good fireworks sound. I'm sorry, guys. That was awful.
Yeah. Apparently, also during the Fire Festival, they're going to be having a second new PvE Tavern Brawl after the Fire Festival one runs its course. But the big thing is, if you're trying to save up some gold, basic daily quests completed during the Fire Festival reward double gold. So as long as the Fire Festival is going on, we're going to be getting double gold from any quest that we complete.
Right. And we don't have actual dates for the Fire Festival or for the new expansion, but we do know the new expansion says it's coming in August. Last time the Fire Festival was July, right? So we should be getting the Fire Festival before the expansion, allowing us to have some gold going into the new expansion. So thanks, Blizz.
My only concern is that I will most likely be on a family vacation when the majority of the Fire Festival is up. And I'm like, no, I need gold, even though I'm going to spend way too much money pre-ordering packs.
Yep.
But yeah, we also got a patch. There were a bunch of bug fixes. I'm not going to go into those point by point, but they've also adjusted things like they've reduced the download size of Hearthstone for mobile. It is now smaller. Apparently, they've improved the performance of the collection manager. They've got new support for modern phones with larger screens, so it actually utilizes the screen space on things like the iPhone X. I don't have one. It's very shiny.
Neither do I.
I would like one, but
My
I do
phone
not
is
have
very
it.
small.
I always go for the smallest phone I can buy, so I just have an 8. Although I do want a 10, I'm not going to lie. And the elemental changes and art changes, the things like Witchwood Grizzly and Moonkin's no longer being Beast. All those changes that we talked about last week are now live in the game.
Yep.
So pour one
And I
out.
wonder if we're going to get some, I wonder if the new expansion is why we're giving Mountain Giants and Molten Giants as elementals, like why that change came in. Because I bet that's going to be awesome.
Ooh, yeah. I bet so.
They did say, well, the teaser that they put out, the teaser image had something about elemental damage. So I wonder if we're going to get more elementally type synergy things.
Yeah. Yeah, there wasn't. Man, you're just reminding me. There was not much of a lead up to the announcement of this expansion, even though we thought there was with again the fruit thing.
Yeah.
But they had the emergency eye wash station teaser went up, and then bam. By the way, we leaked the announcement. Everybody.
Yeah. Whoopsies.
Yeah, didn't take very long, but I was looking at the thing like eye wash station. What the hell is this? It's like what used to be in science class, and turns out completely on brand.
Yep. I was literally looking at everything else. I was like, okay, there's a giant eye. There's an element, elementals mentioned. How can I tie this all into ethereals, which is clearly it's an ethereal gate. I was even in Netherstorm the other day in Warcraft, and I was like, yep, that's exactly what that looks like. So, yep. Not much of a lead up at all.
Yeah, but if you want to check out the bug fixes, the patch notes are up on the official Hearthstone website. HCT Italy is up next. That happened over the weekend. Jocelyn, you watched it. I'm good. I feel like I've seen enough of this meta. But I apparently have not seen enough of Hunter Race completely dominating professional Hearthstone play at the moment.
Yeah, his performance has just been absolute insanity. We have never seen this level of dominance from a single player ever in so many large and also consecutive events, basically. He's just he's winning multiple tour stops. Who does that? Who is this man?
Yeah, there were I believe 500 players in the Swiss round. Over 500?
Yeah, the HCT Italy was very, very large.
Yeah, which didn't mean he had to play against 500 players, but he did have to go through. He had to win at least 7 matches in the Swiss round to get into the top 16. That's ridiculous. And then he ended up having to get past Muzzy and Just Saying.
Yeah, definitely not an easy road to the finals for sure. And I mean, so we saw him win HCT Seoul last month, and then obviously he won HCT Italy. But it's not even just that he is going through these local open tournaments. It's that he's also qualifying through online qualifiers for things like Tokyo, which happens at the end of July. So just he's proving himself time and time and time again, no matter how big or varied the pool is, no matter what region he's playing in. He's just yep, I'm here and I'm going to win. What's next?
also ladder. Top 25
Yes.
finishes on ladder in the last 3 months. He's winning HCT and also getting top 25 ladder finishes.
I really can't comprehend the amount of Hearthstone that he must play. He's got to be playing literally from the time he wakes up in the morning till the time he goes to sleep at night. I think this just is his life, and he obviously has a very good brain for it. So good job, Hunter Ace. If you guys ever get the option to pick him as your champion, just pick him. Just do it.
Like,
he's on such a hot streak right now.
I couldn't play any game that much.
No.
Any game. Like, nothing. I don't think I played WoW that much at the peak, which is the most addicted I've ever been to any video game. It's just bananas how well he's doing in professional Hearthstone right now, and like he's just rocketing up the points lead. He's killing it for his team.
Mm-hmm. Right, which is now a factor, right? Is who's on what team and what those standings are like, because there's a big chunk of change that's tied to these team standings. Although, as far as I know, Hearthstone itself hasn't put out a team standings page yet. A lot of people in the community are like trying to keep track and figure out who's actually in the lead when it comes to teams. But if you guys know of a Hearthstone team standing page that's put out specifically by Blizzard, I'd love to see it.
Why isn't that just the first thing when you pull up the esports website?
Oh, Garrett.
I know you cover specifically Hearthstone esports as well every week, so I'm sure this is not something that annoys you in the slightest.
Yeah, no, not even a little bit. But yeah, so Hunter Ace has had a really, really good streak, and he's kind of been following, and there's an article up on, I think it was a Daily Dot, or Dot Esports is what they're called now, and talking basically about his lineup strategy and why it's been so successful. And it's quite close to a strategy that we've seen lately, where players are just basically like bringing the best decks. They've moved away from the idea of targeting one specific type of deck, and instead they're just, kind of bringing what is best, what is they're most comfortable with, and what the highest win rate is. But Hunter Ace has kind of taken that to the next step here, and he's actually bringing 2 decks of entirely different playstyle, making his lineup incredibly hard to actually target. So he's got 2 aggressive decks and then 2 like late gamey combo style control even decks. And there's in HCT, I can't remember which one it was, but the one right before Italy, this style wasn't as popular. But now more and more players are starting to bring this. So it's the Odd Paladin, Odd Rogue, Malygos Druid, and then kind of a flex spot that we've seen people bring Mage in, or Priest. And it's a really, really interesting strategy. And clearly it's paying off. I think there was something like 9 out of the top 16 players were following this similar sort of a strategy. So I'm sure eventually, because the thing about the tournament meta is that it actually does rotate, just kind of the same as the normal Hearthstone meta does.
Yeah,
but
it kind of chases itself.
It does.
That's how it can stay interesting, right? Like, even if, because they're calling it the 2-2 strategy, so even if this sticks, eventually players are going to start trying to counter the 2-2 strategy, and the meta is going to evolve.
Right. And I think especially right now, I don't even know if we're going to see this 2-2 strategy being successful through the end of July, just because we'll still be in the Witchwood meta. But right now, Zulok and Taunt Warrior are actually doing fairly well. And for whatever reason, it's like their strength and popularity seems to have happened kind of in the same sort of timeline as what we had HCT Italy. It seems like only in the last week or so, people have really been kind of refining the Zulok build, and Taunt Warrior we've seen for a while now. But in a meta where most players are bringing a 2-2 strategy with 2 very, very aggressive board-centric decks, I think we're probably going to see Zulok and Warrior kind of make a comeback. I think that's going to be the counter. And then we're going to be going back to strategies that are going to try to punish slow control stuff. So it's very cyclical. I think we'll see probably a lot of people bringing the 2-2 strategy to our next HCT event. And then people who are kind of that next step and ahead of the meta, those are going to be your players bringing Warrior. Those are going to be your players bringing Zulok. So keep your eyes open for that in our next HCT event, which I think is Tokyo, although there is also an unannounced, or at least I couldn't find much information about it, but there's supposed to be an HCT event in California, and it just says July on the official Hearthstone website. So I don't know when that event is going to be. We're already, 10 days into July. So information, please, Blizzard.
Yeah, as far as we know, Tokyo's next. Hunter Ace has already qualified for it. Muzzy and
Yeah.
Dog are also already qualified alongside plenty of other players. We got links in the show notes to the Italy bracket if you just want to catch up on that, and the Tokyo bracket as it currently stands. Go check it out.
Coach K in the chat room is saying it's HCT Oakland, but I'm going to Google it right now. It is apparently HCT Oakland.
Is there a specific date, or does it still just say July?
Apparently July 14th to 16th. So this coming weekend.
Okay. Well, there you go.
Yep. They're doing a real great job with all of this advertising for esports. Eye roll.
There's a lot of Hearthstone.
There's a lot of Hearthstone. There's a lot of HCT events, but I mean, their website needs to be a little bit.
It's time for a
It
facelift.
needs to be updated more often or something streamlined. I don't know.
It's difficult.
I've been
even
saying this since they brought HCT Tour Stops into esports. Is just this whole couple of seasons have been a little bit messy in terms of figuring out what's happening when and what's official.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult even for fan sites, right? Like, I keep up with Wikipedia because it's, to me, that I've just been using it since back in the StarCraft days, so I'm just used to kind of perusing it, but it's also extremely up to date. And Oakland is nowhere to be found on here.
Yeah, and well, because it's called something different on the original blog post that they have been updating. It's like Hearthstone will tour the globe is the name of the blog post, and it's from way back in January, and that's where they had been posting the schedule, but it hasn't been updated in a month or two. And the last kind of events were this, and I think it was called like HCT Esports Arena or something. It didn't even say Oakland, so they've even changed the name of that one, and it just said July. So yeah, like I said, they've been like changing advertising strategies because I've been watching that blog post to try to figure out what's happening when. So
Yeah.
it's if they I guess they decided to stop updating that and then now they're posting it somewhere else. I don't know. Anyways, doesn't matter. Step up your game, Hearthstone Esports. That's all I'm saying.
It's time for a facelift. Redo that website.
Yeah.
I would I would talk about Tavern Talk, but there's nothing in here. It is the fluffiest fluff you ever fluffed. If you're interested, go for it. But it's basically the same thing we've heard a million times on getting old heroes and why not more frequent balance updates, which is to say nothing in concrete and still nothing of interest. So,
yeah.
Before we move into strategy, we're talking Cube Hunter today. Let's thank our patrons over at patreon.com/TAC. If you enjoy what we're doing here and you want to support it, that's the best way to do it. If you're unfamiliar with Patreon, it is an opt-in subscription. TAC is free. It's always going to be free. But if you'd like to throw us $1 or $2, check out patreon.com/TAC. Want to thank some of our newer patrons. Huge thanks to Vic H and Ryan R. Thank you very much for signing up, gentlemen. We appreciate the support. There's also a producer slot open, if you want to be super generous. So go check it out. We really appreciate it. Again, patreon.com/TAC. Now, let's talk Cube Hunter.
Hit it very hard.
Wanna blow something up? Time to pay!
So really, I just wanted to listen to Jocelyn mention the word cube followed by any class and smile and be happy. So Jocelyn, would you like your Cube Hunter with eggs? Would you like your Cube Hunter with Shaw? Would you like your Cube Hunter not with Shaw or with eggs?
with Arfis. So I think this is a really, really interesting time because whenever you get a new deck that seems to have some quite powerful matchups, but we haven't quite figured out what the best build is, I love this time. It's so exciting. So Cube Hunter is something that has become a little bit more popular over the last week and a half or so. And I've been playing the eggs version. I freaking love the eggs version. I think it's so fun and has the ability to totally snowball very, very early, which can help you in some of the other matchups against some really aggressive decks, which I don't know about you guys. I don't know what rank you're playing at, but for me, I'm between 10 and 5 right now. And the amount of just straight up aggressive burn your face decks is insane. It's like almost every match is, okay, I went up against a Murloc Priest, and obviously we have, the stupid make all the dudes paladin, And then also a crazy tempo like burn mage. So everybody around the ranks that I'm playing at is just right now trying to burn my face in. So the reason that I like the version of Cube Hunter with the eggs is that it allows me to put 5/5s on the board quite early on, and I can kind of snowball that momentum and kill them before they kill me.
Yeah,
so I feel
specifically
like I
Devil
like
Soar
this
eggs.
better.
Specifically Devil Soar eggs. I know it's standard. We don't really
Yes.
have many options as far as eggs, but just to specify.
Yes, very specifically Devil Soar eggs. So the idea is because you're playing with a Devil Soar egg and you're playing with the Terror Scale Stalker, which is the minion that triggers a friendly minion's death rattle. So you can play an egg and then you can play the Stalker and then you get a 5/5. Plus you still have the egg on board. And the reason why having the egg on board is really good is more so in a kind of Warlock dominated meta where they want to do like removals, things like Hellfire. If they Hellfire your board, then bam, doesn't kill the 5/5 that you've popped out with the Stalker, and also will kill your egg and give you a new 5/5. So you'll have a 5/5 and a 5/2, and the Warlock is just crying. So it's very good in a Warlock specific meta, which we, like I mentioned, at the rank that I'm playing at, is kind of non-existent. But because you have these early 5/5s potentially, you also have Houndmaster Shaw in this deck, which is a card that just needs to be dealt with. And if you can like cube your Shaw and then your cube dies and you get 2 more Shaws, like most decks just don't have that much removal. So I'm having a lot of fun with the egg version, but you're right, Garrett. Just the whole idea of a cube deck. I feel like this is why it's kind of a problem as a card in general, is because like you can just slot it into so many decks and it's so hard to deal with. But anyways,
I mean, you were coaching me through some games with this archetype earlier today because I'm pretty unfamiliar with it, and we were in an unfavored matchup against the Zulok, and we just knocked Gul'dan's head off into the nether. Like,
yes.
It was disgusting how quickly we got 3 charged Devil Soars to connect to face in one turn.
Yeah, it's pretty insane. And it does have the ability to high roll. So the version that I was playing with the Devil Soar eggs actually does play high mains in it, which it's meant to be more of a like increase the number of death rattles that you have in your deck, make it more of a like survive and fight for board type of a style, as opposed to like the one you were mentioning. I think we were playing the most popular version on HS Replay, which has more of like a standard hunter early game. So you've got like your animal companions and stuff like that, as well as having explosive traps, which the egg version doesn't have explosive traps. It actually swaps out venom strike traps instead, which again really helps you against a Warlock who's playing 8/8s or, you know, just generally fighting for the board. Having that poisonous snake really helps you get rid of anything big in your way. So it's meant for a meta with things like Warlocks and Taunt Druids. It's maybe not as much meant for a meta with Paladins and Burn Mages, but can still get there. So yeah, the most popular version that we were playing earlier today does have that more standard early game, doesn't have a lot of the death rattles that the Cube Hunter, or sorry, that the Egg Hunter does, but it has a very explosive late game because you're just running King Crush and Charged Devil Store. You're not necessarily running those slower high mains. So you can have those crazy explosive turns where you Katharina out a Charged Devil Store, hit him in the face, cube it, get more Devil Swords the next turn. Like it's it has a lot more consistent explosive mid to late game.
Yeah. That being said, you can also draw into the things you're looking to Katharina out and have a bad time. But
which is why I do prefer the egg version, just because you have a few more things that Katharina can hit if you happen to draw your Crush or your Devil Sword, or your Charged Devil Swords. So many Devil Swords in these decks. But yeah, so it gives you a couple more recruit targets, but again, it's a slower kind of play style. It's a fight for board, and regardless of which kind you're playing, there's kind of 3 different versions. There's the egg version, there's the one that's popular that we were playing with the more standard hunter early game, but then there's also a third version that has a little bit more flexibility in play style. And this one comes from competitive Hearthstone from Panda Dude 3000. There's actually a guide posted. There's a link in the show notes to the Reddit post to the guide.
it's a great guide, by the way. It's a great guide, by the way, if you want to learn how to play this.
It is, yeah. But again, it is kind of a different, not necessarily different archetype, but it does play a little bit differently because it's got control tools in it, which the other ones don't really have as much of. So it's got things like Wild Pyro and Hunter's Mark, which basically lets you clear anything and still have a 3-1 left on the board. So it gives you a couple more board clears. So this is going to be really good in a meta that is heavily favoring Paladin, who otherwise, like in the egg version that I was playing, doesn't even have explosive traps. So you literally have one board clear with your Deathstalker Rexar. And that's the point I was going to make, is that Deathstalker Rexar is so important to this deck. You want to get him as fast as possible. You want to play him out on 6, and you want to start making your beasts as soon as possible. And you push that button every turn, Garrett. Every turn.
This is basically the extent of your coaching. Was
yeah.
Every time I would play Deathstalker Rexar, I would go to do something else before I would push the button. You're like, no, push the button.
Always push the button.
Yeah, it's interesting. So yeah, I really like it with the explosive trap, but for Zoo, I think you're like overestimating its effect against Odd Paladin. Odd Paladin is like, it feels like an automatic loss if you're playing this archetype. It is such a poor matchup. So you just kind of got to watch out for that. And that's Hearthstone right now. Like, no matter what you're playing, there's going to be a couple of decks that if you queue into, it's going to feel like there's nothing you could do. I mean, you and Jocelyn, while you and I played today, we ended up against an Odd Paladin who played into our explosive trap like the wrongest way possible and still just destroyed us. We didn't have a chance, but
yeah. And I think that, like, that's where either the egg version or this competitive Hearthstone version from Panda Dude, I think that's why they might be a little bit stronger. It kind of like they shore up the matchup either by having many, many board clears available over the course of the game, so it makes it more difficult for the Odd Paladin to actually stick a board. Yes, they can make a bazillion boards over the course of a game, but you're able to clear maybe 4 or 5 of them. Whereas the more popular build on HS Replay doesn't really have, yes, they have that explosive track and they have Rexar, but I feel like in general, the egg version, if you're able to cheat out your 5/5s, you're able to put more pressure on them than they're putting on you. So you're not necessarily clearing their board. You're putting more on your board earlier and forcing them to make trades. So it kind of like your tempo acts like a board clear. And so I think that the egg version and the control version, those two are probably better in a Paladin meta. The more popular version on HS Replay is probably better in something where you don't have to worry about early game too much, because I mean, Animal Companion is a super powerful card. Like, you should be wanting to play that, right? So I think that that's kind of, if you're seeing a lot more things like maybe Taunt Druid or maybe Priest, then the most popular HS Replay deck is probably the better version.
Yeah, I think so as well. Oh man, we destroyed that Priest earlier as well. But yeah, it
really does depend on what you're seeing at the ranks that you're playing as to which version of this deck is probably going to be the best for you. But it's super fun to play, and I'm surprised it took this long for us to kind of figure out that cubes would go really well with Hunter Death Rattle cards.
Yeah, it's that's what's cool. Like, I know last episode we started to kind of get on the discussion of like, do we like this meta? Do we not like this meta? It feels a little more rock, paper, scissors than usual, but like, whatever you want to say about it, like, it is very cool that the meta is still evolving. We are still finding new archetypes that work and are competitive on ladder.
Very much so.
Yeah. So I dig it. This is very cool, and it's something I want to play. I want to play more of. I think I still overall like Recruit Hunter a little bit more, but I need to spend more time.
Yeah, and like I said, I was playing Recruit Hunter, but I found that Recruit Hunter didn't have as much, like I said, the kind of standard Hunter early game I find isn't strong enough right now. And that's kind of why I like the egg version better than the other versions, is because it just has such a potentially strong snowbally early game. And when I mean early game, I mean like pre-turn 4. It has so, because you've got your eggs and your play deads and all this kind of stuff that kind of plays together to give you an extraordinarily strong early game, that that's what I need in Hearthstone right now. And that's what Recruit Hunter didn't necessarily have. And this is kind of a weird like combination of a Death Rattle Hunter and a Recruit Hunter. It kind of does both things, and it does both things quite well. And as we've seen in Hearthstone's past, both Recruit and Death Rattle are extraordinarily strong mechanics. So this is a powerful deck. I just don't know if we've actually refined it to the point that it needs to be yet, but it does have quite a few flex spots for tech cards. So again, this is the kind of thing where you have to pay attention to the decks that you're facing, and then you can do things like you can swap out like, oh, there's a lot of Warlocks, I'm going to Venom Strike instead of Explosive. Oh, I'm seeing a lot of Paladins, in goes those Explosive traps. It really depends on what you're facing as to what you're going to change. But I mean, even just looking at these 3 decks, like there are a lot of changes you can potentially make.
Yeah. It's I really like it. I need to try the egg version. You keep talking.
Oh god, it's so fun.
You're so positive on it, and I love eggs, like in real life and in Hearthstone. It's very tasty. I don't care how they're cooked. I'll eat them. It's probably untrue. Don't test me on that. But yeah, check it out. We've got links to all of the deck lists, all 3 of them that we mentioned here in the show notes, amove.tv/TAC. Look for the 271 post. There's always a link to the show notes at the very bottom of that post. Now let's wrap this up with an email or 2.
Hello?
Hello, it's me.
Hello?
Just quickly, do you get my message?
Yep.
Oh.
Hello, brother.
You can send your emails to tacpodcast@gmail.com. Hachakumo, returning to our inbox, kicks us off this week saying, hello, classic rare neutral 1/1s that turn into 6/0s Bible Thump. Hello, you as well, Hachakumo. I came to the sudden realization during the Taverns of Time event about Arena. The reason why I could never get into Arena is because almost every run would result in a loss as the last game. I know it is a stupid reason, but I find the moments when I finally feel attached to a deck that I drafted and played the exact same moment when I don't want to risk losing it forever. Does that make sense to you? Sort of, a little bit. Let's see where you're coming at. So this led me to thinking about alternatives or changes, and I'd like to hear your thoughts. What if Arena is play until you get 6 wins? As a comparison, 6-4 runs will be soft infinite, and 6-2 will be hard infinite. After 6 losses, you have a chance to queue into Innkeeper to finish your run. All right, you've officially gone to the crazy town, as far as I'm concerned. And do that awesome synergy combo you drafted but never happened. Okay. But maybe Garrett is correct. We just need a mode where your finished Arena deck doesn't disappear until you retire it. Once you finish your run, you can play against friends with that deck to your heart's content. Definitely the easiest thing to add to the game. Yep, we know. We know for a fact. Super easy to add to the game.
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, you agree with me on that last paragraph, so I'm going to say you're 100% right. And there's, it's just a fact. There's no opinion here. It's all on point.
The only thing that I would say about that last paragraph is that he said specifically once you finish a run, you can play against friends. I don't see why you couldn't just play against friends at any point. Why do you have to specifically finish a run? If anything, you could get some practice in with your Arena deck before you take it into a competitive mode. I think that would be pretty cool.
Yeah, I didn't take it as him suggesting only after you finish. I was thinking that this was just a run-on from his feel bad of losing out of Arena. But yeah, queuing into the Innkeeper is weird. I wouldn't expect to ever see that in the game. But the rest of this, I mean, I don't think you're completely off base. At the same point, I would be very surprised to hear that the majority of Arena maining players would want Arena to be changed where they can't get as many wins. Because then you're punishing the upper echelon of talented Arena players. But there's something here. You're not wrong, Hachakumo. I mean, you're right. Like it's that kind of, it's that difference between is bad or feels bad. I don't necessarily think it is bad. I really like the way that Arena is currently set up. But it's certainly, you're not wrong. It does feel bad, especially if you're attached to the deck.
Well, and I mean, even if you're not necessarily attached to the deck, unless you're going 12-2, then you're ending your runs on a loss. And just psychologically, it's like you're going to feel bad more often than you feel good because no one gets 12-0s or 12-1s or 12-2s all the time. So it's an interesting concept. It's an interesting kind of psychological question of like, would it feel better if you just kept playing and maybe you go, I mean, and whether we change the number of wins or not, like I don't think that's really the important part of this kind of idea in question. I think what's important is like if an arena run went for X number of wins as opposed to X number of losses, would that make for a more enjoyable arena experience? So could you go like 10 and 10? Like, would that be more fun? Or would it be more fun to just go, 12 and 3 or 11 and 3 or whatever? Would that feel better? I don't know. I think if you were ending your run on a win, I think that would feel better because getting that 12th win right now feels really good. It's a huge sense of accomplishment. So if you had that as opposed to, loss. Oh, 12 wins. Yay. If you had I won. Yay. would that feel better in the long run? I think probably so, but I'm not a huge arena player. So
I feel like you need a cap on losses at some point. I mean, yes, you could always retire, right? But the idea of just having the worst arena deck ever and I could just play it to 132 losses because it can't win. It's just bizarre.
Right. So, yeah, it's a totally different way of looking at arena, right? And, yeah, you could potentially go, 10, 20, 30, however many losses you wanted to play. You could absolutely go that way. But like you mentioned, there is always the option to be like, okay, this deck really isn't winning. I'm just going to retire it, and I'm just going to take my reward for however many wins I've been able to squeak out. So I feel like it's definitely interesting. And I like the idea of, playing until I get a certain number of wins. I think that's cool and might actually draw me into the play mode a little bit more.
Yeah. I really like the idea of being able to challenge your friend as a way to practice before you actually hit the arena. I never really considered that as something I might want to do if I actually got my request of being able to challenge friends with my arena deck. I just want it so I can do an arena tournament. But
right. Whereas, like,
right.
For me, my problem often with arena decks is that I, like, draft the strongest cards, or I think I have a pretty good deck that's got some synergies or whatever the case is, but then I find I don't learn how to pilot it properly until it's too late, and basically the run's over. So it would be really cool if I could maybe, like, play a few practice matches, if, I could challenge another friend with an arena deck or even a pre-built deck or whatever, but if I could just have a few practice games against somebody else or even against AI, like just to see how my deck plays and draws and things like that and how it feels, then go into arena. Because I find I end up doing a lot of like 3-3 or 4-3 type runs. And it's just like, I'm like, oh, I forgot that card was in my deck. Or, that was a poor drafting choice. Like that didn't play like I thought it was going to play, which if I had some practice runs, I wouldn't have those feelings, I guess.
Yeah, to a certain degree. I mean, I like that uncertainty to a certain degree. That's what I like so much about playing limited in Magic. Like it's just part of the mode going in. It's just, I guess I'm thinking on my feet. Hope I play this correctly.
Yeah, maybe I'm bringing too much like constructed player into arena. Sorry, guys.
I don't think it's a bad thing. Like I said, I think there's something here. There is something here. I don't think taking away wins is it or ever going to be considered. But yeah, if nothing else, you've opened you've given me more positives for what could be if we could play friends with arena decks. Not that I needed any more fuel to continue asking for that feature, but thank you, Hachikomo. Thank you. Who's our final email today from?
This one comes to us from Jarek, who says, a wild welcome, Furious Fowl. On your recent tech episode, you discussed how cool it would be for Blizzard to have more formats involving sets in different ways, and this gave me an idea for a tournament. One thing that's often brought up about tournaments is how they don't necessarily reward deck building because everything's refined by the community. What if there was a tournament that started with a set draft like in MOBAs? First, each player would ban a set from the pool, and then each would choose a set for themselves. Then there would be another round of bans, and since your opponent chose Mean Streets of Gadgets and perhaps they're going for a strong Druid deck, so do you ban Knights of the Frozen Throne to keep them away from Ultimate Infestation, or do you perhaps take it for yourself? Then there's another round or two of choosing sets, and then each player builds a series of decks to face off against what they think their opponent will build with their own sets. Could be a WoW theme by calling it something like the Infinite Dragonflight Clash.
Rolls off the tongue.
You helped to name Boomsday, didn't you? And this could also lead to some very wild matchups that we've never seen before and would be super interesting to watch. So I think this idea is really, really, really cool. I am one of the people who really likes watching the picks and bans phase almost more than the actual games when I watch like Heroes of the Storm. I find the picks and counter picks really, really interesting. And I would love to see that brought into Hearthstone in some way, shape, or form. I agree. I think it'd be super interesting to watch.
I like picks and bans a lot. This is interesting. It obviously would have to be wild. Standard would never have enough sets for this to be interesting.
Right.
And I'm not quite sure we have enough sets as it is, even if we were to do this with wild. So I think it would need to come down the road. Because we currently only have 13 releases out there, not including, classic/basic, and 4 of those are adventures, which don't have a ton of cards in them.
Right. And I feel like you would have to kind of keep a baseline of like everyone gets to play with classic basic. Like you wouldn't be able to ban those decks because there's so many cards from the classic basic set that if that was included in the picks and bans in any way, shape, or form, then like you would be able to like pick 400 cards and then the next player would be able to only pick 100 cards because all they have left is expansions. So
yeah,
I feel like classic basic, everyone would just have to get. And then what you're playing with from there is the expansion mix on top of that base. I feel like Hearthstone needs a base card game, which is the classic set.
Right. Yeah, I agree. Because like, what are you gonna do? You're gonna ban the classic set? That's ridiculous. Like,
yeah.
or keep it, or pick it to keep it for yourself. I think that's just what you would do. There's just so many cards to pick from in the classic set. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't need a ton more releases. When you think about it, like if we're using Heroes of the Storm as our example, you're divvying up 80 heroes between 10 players. Then there's also 2 bans soon, or 4 bans. Soon there's going to be 6 bans. Actually, I think it's 6 bans now. I don't know when it's in esports off the top of my head, but neither here nor there. Since we're only going between 2 players, you would need significantly less variance in what you're picking and what you're banning.
Yeah.
But I still don't think 13 is enough yet. But yeah, I mean, this is very interesting. I'd never really thought about this. I really like the idea of like banning out certain cards or doing like a popper type tournament. And I would really like to see that maybe before we get to this, because this is like, I don't know, to me, this is like breaking new ground. And to really have like an intelligent conversation about it, a lot of research I think would have to go into this. Like we'd have to, suddenly we would start like assigning like power levels and tiers to entire sets, which is just, we don't think about Hearthstone in that way right now. And specifically, Team 5 doesn't think about Hearthstone balance in that way. So if this did become something that was competitive with points and large prize pools and a lot of money
come on,
moving around,
even just straight up wild isn't competitive right now. So there's no way that this would ever be involved in the official HCT, like how you earn points thing. That would just not happen. This
not
is
in the
too
short
wacky
term.
And wild.
Yeah, not in the short term. Like this is something I would say like let's start talking about this when we actually have multiple formats in competitive Hearthstone. Whereas right now we really don't. But this is super cool. But the undertaking and the skill that would need to be grown for this to be, to fuel this with any sort of longevity, it'd be a lot. This is a very different way to think about the game.
It is, and it's not only just another way to think about the game, but then you've also got to think about it from a time standpoint. The reason why drafting works in MOBAs, and I'm not dissing this idea at all. Like, I think this idea is really cool, and I would love to see it realized somehow, but you almost would have to do a set draft, like, the week ahead of time, and then have time to build decks, like, which then, again, doesn't necessarily get around the community building things together kind of problem that it seems like you're trying to solve here. But the reason why drafting works in MOBAs is because when you draft like a hero in Heroes of the Storm, that hero is already set. The only build you have to do is your talent build that happens on the fly as the game progresses. So time-wise, you just do your draft and you go right into the game. If you had to do a draft in Hearthstone and you were picking sets and you weren't sure what kind of combinations you were get, like the amount of decks you'd have to have pre-built in your head would be insane. It'd be crazy. So then you have to incorporate an amount of time in a tournament to actually do the deck building. And if you're assuming that this is going to happen in every round, is this going to be a super small tournament? Is it only 16 or maybe even just 8 players? Is this single elimination? Like, there's a lot of logistical problems here from an esports perspective because Hearthstone's so different from something like a MOBA. But I think it's a really cool idea, and I would like someone to solve all those problems.
Yeah. The biggest thing that sticks out to me is just the story of the draft, and because there's 9 classes to consider in the impact of picking a 100+ card group, that is not an easy story to tell. I mean, you give the example of mean streets equals strong druid deck, but that's not the only thing it means. So if that gets grabbed up, you know, at the end of the day, what really does that mean? And we're not too sure. It works in Heroes of the Storm, especially as you get further and further down the draft, because the picture and the synergies really start to get painted, and you have an idea what each team is going for, and it also informs what they're going to draft down the line or ban down the line. That's where like the interest comes from in watching a draft. So that's the other thing is there's a big challenge in storytelling and entertainment, which I think is connected to that storytelling for the audience.
Yep. So yeah, I think it's a cool and interesting idea, but lots of hurdles that I don't know. And again, like Garrett mentioned earlier on, like saying we don't think of Hearthstone this way right now. It's hard to even think about whether or not this would really work because we're not used to thinking about Hearthstone in this way specifically. So, and chat room's also saying Tempo Storm did an event like this. Tempo Storm did the history of Hearthstone, which is not quite exactly the same thing because they were basically trying to like recreate metas, right? Like this would be a full on like draft. So like you would get combinations of sets that have never existed in that way, like in a meta before together.
Right.
Which I think could be really, really cool and interesting.
Yeah. Like GVG and Witchwood, but not like other things that would be in Wild.
But nothing else in between. Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's not what the Tempo Storm tournament was doing. They also did a draft tournament like forever ago. They still have the draft tool on their website that you can go and use, but that's also pretty different from what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. It's very interesting. I like the banning. Banning would be. I almost like to see that at a team event, like and teams on mic and talking about like, oh, you know, we get to ban a card. What do we just want to remove from the field? Like, yeah. I don't know. I think it.
I don't know if I like specific card bans necessarily. I like the idea of just saying like, let's make a totally new meta. This could be fun, but one like specific card bans, I don't know. I'm almost with Blizzard on specific card bans, is that it just kind of feels bad.
I'm not.
Although I would like to ban Cube.
I just disagree. I just disagree. I'm actually like, the more I think about this, I don't think this works as a draft. Like, I think it's interesting because of the card pool, but I think you lose your earbuds and can't hear what I'm saying.
Yeah, I totally lost everything that you just said because Thrall's being a jerk and tore out my headphones.
What I was going to say, what I was saying is the more I think about this, I'm not sure draft is interesting for this. What's interesting about this is the mix of sets that have never been together before with other sets omitted.
Yes.
That's what's interesting. I think I would rather just see, like, you just call that out ahead of time, and that's what the tournament's going to be. Make decks with these expansions, go in, fight each other. I don't think the ban phase, the pick and ban, would be a particularly interesting conversation to be had because there's just so many possibilities. Whereas if you want to have a pick and a ban, I think it'd be more interesting for single cards. Also, and to kind of defend the single card thing, I think having a pick as well as a ban is important to like lock in certain cards, as well as being able to kind of omit certain cards, because it's easier to have a discussion around single entities.
That's very, very true. Yeah.
But, yeah, I don't know. You've got my brain buzzing, Jarek, on a day where we just got a new expansion announced. So well done. Thank you for the great emails today. Great emails. Thought starters for sure. Keep them coming. tacpodcast@gmail.com. That's going to wrap it up for this episode. We got a new expansion announced, and it's right around the freaking corner. I don't even think I said the release date. Did we say the release date?
No, but we didn't get a date, right? We just got August.
No, didn't we? I thought it was, am I wrong? Oh, I guess, so it wasn't, I thought it was, oh, okay. Yeah, now I'm not seeing it actually in the rundown. I'm dumb.
I thought because definitely
August
the
7th.
bundles say coming in August.
Okay, August 7th. Yep. Okay, it is.
Oh,
August
there is
7th.
a date. August 7th. Okay.
I could have sworn, yeah. We got so wrapped up in talking about mechs coming back, we forgot to even say the damn release date. So it's
I am so used to them like not giving us an expansion announcement and a date at the same time that I just assumed we didn't have a date.
Yeah. The date was in the leak. You're right. It was in the description on the YouTube. So it's less than a
So
month
I
away.
bet they weren't planning on giving us the date because it wasn't in the video itself, right? So.
Well, maybe, but it was. Why would you have it in the description of the video, like just hanging out there unlisted? I don't know, but whatever the case is, it is exactly 4 weeks away. So, card reveal season, I guess, begins. So,
I guess.
there it is. Thanks again to our awesome patrons. You can become an Angry Chicken patron and support the show by going to patreon.com/TAC. Huge thanks to our producers, Declan H., Sean C., Johnny S., and LVE. Thank you for the generous support, everyone. You can follow the show on Twitter at TAC Podcast. Another way that you can help the show is always dropping us a 5-star review on iTunes. So if you dig what we are doing, go over to iTunes, drop us a 5-star review. We very much appreciate it. Dills is not here to promote his own stuff, so I'll do it for him. You should check him out on Twitter at Willie Dills and follow his Twitch stream, twitch.tv/Willie Dills. Joss, what about yourself? Where can everybody find your work?
You can find me on Twitter and Twitch. I'm at Joss Plays, and I think I talked about it last week. Just in case I didn't, check out BattleNet Sports. I cover Hearthstone for BattleNet Sports. I do about a 10 to 15 minute blurb once a week. So go and check it out. It covers all of Blizzard's esports. So if you're interested in Overwatch or WoW, Mythic Dungeons or Arena, all that kind of stuff, go check it out. BattleNet Sports.
Rad. I'm Garrett on Twitter. All of the podcasts that I do can be found at amove.tv. Jocelyn and I are going to be actually cramming a bunch of Embrace the Spoilers episodes so we can get them recorded before she leaves and then I leave. So we've got the original Westworld movie coming up. That'll be going out on the feed soon. We're also going to be doing Ant-Man and the Wasp. So go check out Embrace the Spoilers if you weren't aware. Yes, Jocelyn and I have a show where we spoil movies and TV, and it's called Embrace the Spoilers. You can find it wherever podcasts can be found. That's going to do it for this episode. Thank you again, everybody, for tuning in. I'll be back next week with Dills and maybe Ant for episode 272 of The Angry Chicken. But until then, job's done.
Job's done.
Yes! It's not the same.
You have to yes.
It's not the same. It's not the same when it's not Dills. I think you need to do a yes, and I'll just edit it together for the audio one.
No way. I never yes after my own job's done. It's just weird. Weird.
Sounds oddly dirty when you put it like that. I never yes after my own job's done. All right. Good job. That had good flow. We're just over 90 minutes. There's a lot to cover.
Mm-hmm.
Got an email. What's going on? That's not important. Wait, what? My bank is trying to put through a car payment for a car that's paid off. I need to nip that in the butt. Well, chat room, you've been awesome. Thank you for hanging out.
Yay, chat room.
Yeah. That's pretty much all I got. That's all I got. ... Or is it? I don't get it. What are you talking about? So, I'm watching Westworld tonight. We'll record that tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to try to find time to watch Westworld too, because I have raid to do tonight. So, probably watch it from like 2 till 4 a.m.
Oh, Jesus. And then tomorrow night, we'll go see Ant-Man, and we'll record Thursday before Into the Nexus. And I think I'm going to actually put out Ant-Man first and then schedule Westworld for while we're both gone, because Ant-Man's more
Makes
timely.
sense.
So I think that's what I'll do. Anything else?
I don't think so.
Cool. Chat room, I'm killing the stream. You've been great.
Bye, chat room.